الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وأهل بيته وسلم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Respected sisters and brothers in Iman, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'd like to begin today's session, first of all, by thanking everybody who has attended or will be watching this seminar eventually. We're honored to have two guest speakers here with us. We have Sister Shaheen Lakhani. Sister Shaheen Lakhani is a physician assistant for over 20 years with a background in internal medicine and primary care, and has spent the last 14 years specializing in GI, digestive health, and diseases. Sister Shaheen also has a specialty focus on nutrition as a health and wellness coach. We also have Shaykh Amin Rastani with us, who is an American Shia Muslim scholar who studied and graduated who studied at the Hawza Al-Miya in Qom between 1999 and 2017. Shaykh Rastani is an author, researcher, and educator who serves the community in the Dallas, Texas area, and many other areas across North America in person and virtual. He's the founder of the Mizan Institute, an educational organization aiming to spread deeper Islamic knowledge and the rich Shia Seminarian heritage in the English-speaking Islamic world through presentations, workshops, and courses. Assalamu alaikum, sister. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykhna.
Wa alaikum salam.
Wa alaikum salam.
So before we proceed with our program, I was wondering if we had the Quran reciter here for us to recite the few ayat of the Quran. If not, then we can get to that a little later. I'll open the floor to kind of give everybody an idea of how this is going to work. If you're on Facebook or on YouTube or on Zoom, please feel free to ask your questions as you deem fit, and through the chat feature. And inshallah, myself and the other moderator from Imam's office would be looking into the questions, and inshallah we'll try to address them as they come along or when suitable. So the way it's going to work is Sister Shaheen as well as Shaykh Amin are going to be, they're not necessarily going to be taking turns as half and half, but rather they're going to be talking about topics where Sister Shaheen may speak for a few minutes, Shaykh Amin might plug in for a few minutes, and vice versa. So I will leave that up to the two of you to decide who wants to go first. We'll actually start with Sister Shaheen because I already know Shaykh Amin, so we'll let Sister Shaheen start, and then inshallah we'll hear Shaykh Amin's respective words of wisdom where he enlightens us. Bismillah, sister. Let's welcome him with salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for having me. So as Sayyidina mentioned, I have a background in nutrition, GI, gut health is one of my passions. As I kind of worked in medicine, I realized that nutrition and the gut had been an issue for me, personally speaking, as I battled through eating disorders and weight issues and whatnot. And as I learned more and more, it became something of a passion for me. So in kind of healing myself, healing my gut, working on those issues, I was able to help others as well. Now, one of the beautiful things that science is only catching up to, and Alhamdulillah, Islam has known for many, many years, is the benefits of fasting. And I'm just going to dive right into the topic right now. If you think about what the month of Ramadan is, yes, we are abstaining from food and water for a block of hours for the daylight hours, dawn to dusk. If you think about what intermittent fasting, which is so much in vogue and in the nutrition spotlight and in health and fitness, how much what it is and what it entails, it's usually abstaining from food and or water, because you can have wet fasts and dry fasts. And it's abstaining from food for a certain number of hours of the day, and typically eating over a block of about anywhere from 4 to 12 hours. depending upon different body types and kind of which method you are following. That sounds really familiar to us Muslims, doesn't it? Because that's the month of fasting. And but if you look at the research is now showing that intermittent fasting, allowing your gut time to heal, time to not have to work on digestion and absorption, is really beneficial for healing gut lining, healing inflammation, clearing the body of toxins through the liver, the kidneys, the skin, and it's just it's beneficial in terms of how you absorb nutrients, how your body burns nutrients. It's really beneficial in how your body metabolizes sugar. So for those who have diabetes or struggle with glucose intolerance, it's actually one of the recommended practices if you meet with a nutritionist or your endocrinologist or your GP primary care physician. All these benefits, we didn't know the science behind it. It was prescribed and we did it. But I'm going to ask you a question. If you think back to your days of fasting, did you feel the first few days of fasting that you were a bit of a kind of having a little bit of fog, maybe a headache, and just kind of feeling a little bit down? But do you feel that as the fast progressed, you start to feel a little bit more energized, a little bit more focused, a little bit more mental clarity? Because that comes along with intermittent fasting as well. The science of it is actually that during the first 7 days, first approximate week that you're going through, your body's releasing toxins, and you're going to feel that fog, that whole idea of, oh, I'm feeling sluggish, but something's happening. And that's natural and it's normal. And then you start to feel a little bit more energized as you go through. And usually by week 2, your body is kind of acclimating, becoming more of a machine in metabolizing and taking a break from all the work of digestion. By week 3, you start to feel pretty amazing because your body's kind of gotten very efficient, knows, okay, I'm getting a break. My digestion happened. My body's going to work. I'm going to burn. I'm going to, the sugar metabolism, everything is there. The sugar storage. We're not having big fluctuations of insulin release. And you start working like a really well-oiled machine. So that usually happens around week 3 into week 4. And one of the beauties that I found in kind of researching all of this is that actually also coincides with the days that we have the Laylatul Qadr nights, the nights where we are up more, inshallah, doing more ibadah, being able to focus more, being able to gain more spiritual benefits because our body is already starting and really optimizing physically. This beauty, this kind of symbiosis is subhanallah, there's nothing else that can explain it. And science is only catching on to these things that, have been prescribed by the Almighty, that have been explained in the Quran. We're only catching up. So I thought when I started doing more and more work into the science of nutrition, this was one of the things that just blew my mind. And I hope to touch a little bit more on that and answer any of your questions that you have a little bit later.
I'd like to plug in a little bit
Sure.
here, sister. So you mentioned how fasting and how it gives your gut a break, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, theoretically, yes. But unfortunately,
Yeah, so it does mean it is dependent on what you're eating and how you're eating.
right. So unfortunately, across the world, a lot of folks will probably maintain a much unhealthier diet in the 29, 30 days of the month of Ramadan as they would outside. So given your research, would you think that it'd be, if everybody's doing what they were doing up until Sha'ban and they continue doing that as a lifestyle, then they'll be better off by Eid? Or are you suggesting that because we're giving our gut a break, we should give it we should be healthier than we were in Shaban as far as eating is concerned?
Yeah. I think so. I'm a big believer of life in moderation. I don't believe in abstaining from sweets or desserts because every once in a while it's okay. You want to live your best life, and that actually say a sheikh will probably be able to tell you a bit more, but in the Quran, it's told us that, we are going to be answerable to our bodies for how we have taken care of it. And so part of kind of getting into tune with the month of Ramadan, yes, the spiritual aspect is 100% the superior, but part of our ibadat is also taking care of our bodies. So if we think about that throughout the year, that doesn't mean don't eat dessert, don't eat the cookie. By all means, have the cookie every once in a while. But how are you feeding your bodies? What is your body has a right over you as well. So if you are putting in these unhealthy things, and as a result you're having all these chronic medical conditions, it affects your mind state, it affects your spiritual state as well. So it varies. I have definitely been guilty of going to group iftars. Obviously in the age of COVID, things are very, very different, and it actually is a blessing in disguise, because it gives us an opportunity to kind of like work on the things that we really want to focus on, in my opinion. Where we're not inundated with going to the masjid and having a plethora of fried foods in front of us, and having and just feeling like out of obligation to have to eat from everybody else, and not wanting to make anybody feel bad. I think following a balanced diet, does that mean that no fried foods at all? No, not at all. But there should be a balance of what we are eating. So it shouldn't, if we're really trying to optimize ourselves and prime ourselves for getting more spiritually connected, part of that is taking care of our bodies, because this is one of the ways, like the movement, God has created this beautiful machine. There is not a robot, a computer that can work the way our bodies do. Mechanically speaking, if you think about when people undergo joint replacements, it never works exactly the way that God has made us. So in doing that, it's a form of ibadat. That was the mental switch that I had to make in order to get into a better place for myself. And I urge everybody to just think about a little aspect of that. So does that mean, leading into the month of Ramadan, how were you eating? Was it a lot of sugary foods? Was it a lot of processed foods? So maybe we do baby steps. Maybe we eliminate one thing and we try one step at a time, and you see how it feels. And I guarantee you, your body will recognize, because your body has that break in that work of digestion. Our gut is only a few cell walls thick. It absorbs everything. So just to give you an idea, carbonated drinks like sodas, if you put it on rust, it will actually eat away the rust on the bumper of a car. We are taking that into our bodies. It's a few cell walls thick is the lining, right? So our bodies are meant to absorb. So we're absorbing the carbonic acid and the ridiculously high amounts of sugar that are in there. And sugar, to your brain doesn't know different. It thinks it's crack. It's like cocaine. That's the effect that it has. And it will want another hit. And that's not how natural cane sugars are. That's not how the sugars of our ancestors were, where they wouldn't use so much. They'd use things sparingly. But the food industry as such, and it is an industry, has refined and processed and eliminated the fiber sources and everything from the food that we eat. So it is not how it comes from the ground. It is not how God, it was meant to grow. It is usually white and refined. If you think about wheat, you break it down, it's not white. It's not white. It's not bleached of all of its chemicals. It has the psyllium, it has the husk, it has the fiber. So there's nothing wrong with having wheat, unless of course you're gluten intolerant and all those other things. And by all means,
Or on keto.
Yeah. Oh yeah, or on keto. Yeah. But the thing is, but if you think about keto also, that's eliminating an entire list of foods that God has made. Like, so on keto, can you eat of the grapes and the bananas that are mentioned in the Quran? You can't. You're breaking your keto. Yeah, you can't have it. It's
Well,
breaking the
very small,
cycle.
in a lot of moderation. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, in moderation. But if you think but that's the beauty. It has actually been prescribed.
Right.
So I like I said, I am not going to be the source of information about information from the Quran. So I will actually turn it over to Shaykh Amin.
Sure. Shaykh Amin, Bismillah. Let's welcome Shaykh Amin with salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Yes, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thanks for having me. It's always fascinating for me personally to listen to information on nutrition and stuff. I'm very big on this stuff actually myself, and I really appreciate all this information. And if it's up to me, like I'll just let Sister go on and on. But let me just add. I mean, the way that Sister started, that we're giving the gut a break. It seems that it just came to my mind as she was explaining that matter, that it reminded me of how we have this concept in those more spiritual discussions out there, that when a person eats food, it's not just the body that gets engaged, actually, it's the soul also that gets engaged when there is food in the body to be digested. This is very interesting. And philosophers have discussed this link between the body and the soul, and what goes on in the body sometimes will have that effect on the soul. And it seems that you'll read stories of great mystics and all of that who, because of just normal food, even sometimes they would fall a little behind in their spiritual schedule. Now that's for them. That's not for a person like me. For a person like me, I have to take care of my wajib and haram and live a religious life in that sense. But for them who are like really high up there, they can attest to this fact that even the slightest engagement of the body with certain matters of the material world, the soul also gets engaged, whether we like it or not. And so it seems that alongside that, the physical aspect of the body taking a break, that is intertwined with the soul taking a break as well. Like, in other words, to give the soul a break, you have to give the body a break, right? So what I'm trying to do here is trying to like bring science and religion together more. You know what I'm saying? So me and Sister Shaheen, next time we're going to be up on the same screen, not diagonal to each other. You get what I'm saying? So we're not at odds. No, I'm just kidding. So no, but really, this is something that you pick up when you look into these matters, and then you're looking at how the Islamic literature approaches this matter as well. And before I go on, if I ever get cut off, my computer every now and then acts up once every full moon, blue moon, okay? And if it freezes, I'll come back into the room. Just saying that, inshallah, it won't happen, but just saying. Anyway, so going back to what I was talking about, is that when you look at the Islamic literature, you find that, yeah, it speaks of both aspects. Okay, is it because these are two separate islands and Islam is touching on both? That's one way to look at it, but one might also come to the conclusion that no, these are actually linked together. Whichever one you touch on, the other one is also coming with it. So for example, you'll have the famous hadith of sumu tasihhu, that if you fast so that you are healthy physically, then at the same time, the Quran, what does it say? It doesn't say that. The Quran says, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. We made it wajib on you and incumbent upon you for spiritual matters. Well, okay, which one is it then? Oh, well, maybe they're linked together. Maybe they are linked together. So the same way the body needs that break, the soul also needs that break. But is that all that is going to happen? Well, there's more as well that we'll talk about, inshallah, moving forward. So that's all I can say right now, inshallah.
Right. Thank you, Sheikh. Sister? Before we actually, sister, sorry, excuse me here. There's a question here, Sheikhna, which says that at what age do you have to fast? Is that something you're going to be tackling a little bit later in your discussion? And we can hold off till then.
Well, it's not an age, it's bulugh. Bulugh is when it becomes wajib to fast. And so that means Islamic coming of age, right? And so sometimes it'll be different ages for different people. The last point at which a person will know that it's wajib for them to fast is age. If none of the other signs of bulugh precede that age, that's the cutoff, okay? Which of course, as most of us, if not all of us, have heard and know, is 15 lunar years in men and 9 lunar years in in women. Now, of course, barring the fact that if a person has reached these ages, but it's just way too hard and unbearable for them to fast, for example, a girl who's turned 9 lunar years, which is about 8 and something actual Gregorian calendar years. If it's too hard, that's a different story. We can talk about that, because some people might say, oh, that's too young of an age. Well, yeah, if it's too hard for them, that's a different story. We can talk about that separately, but that is the age. The age is the cutoff if they haven't become baligh before that, have not come of age Islamically before that age by means of other signs of puberty. But the details of that, of course, are in Islamic law books, pretty accessible.
Thank you, Shaykh. Sister, go ahead.
Yeah. So in terms of, one of the biggest questions that I get is, what should I eat? How should we eat in the month of Ramadan? I think we kind of touched on that. There are certain foods that will, if you eat large meals right after, right at iftar time, you're going to get that big insulin spike. And basically that's the biology of it. How you and I are going to feel after that is that food coma. So think of Thanksgiving dinner. Basically, and that sensation of, I can't get up, I just want to sleep, and that's the food coma that is associated with that insulin spike, and that goes hand in hand with what Shaykh Amin just said, right? There's certain things when we eat, there's a spiritual thing, there's the physical, and then there's the kind of the emotional state of how we're feeling as a result of the food that we're eating. So if we want to really get the most out of the month of Ramadan, emotionally, spiritually, physically, maybe there are a couple of things that we can tweak in terms of how we eat. And one of those first things, and you've probably heard it, because most people will say, I'm going to not eat fried foods, and then suddenly the samosa comes across. But the reason that, eating heavy food, so high in carbs and high in fats, because it's deep fried, is going to cause your stomach to, start to break it down, and you're going to get that insulin spike. And because of the high fat content, it sits in your stomach for a long time, because it's hard for your body to break it down, right? That's one of the things about keto that Sayyid had mentioned before. It lasts longer, but in Ramadan, because the hours are shorter, it is a whole different story when we fast in the winter months, because the fasts are much shorter. But especially when we're fasting in the summer months, we have a short period of time in which to eat. So you want to get nutrient dense foods. So I'm not saying don't eat the samosa. Maybe we can air fry it, which is what I do. And maybe there can be some vegetables thrown in there. Maybe there's a salad along the side. Maybe there's some fruits. To give you that sense of fullness, but to give you the antioxidants with it, to give you the vitamins and the minerals. We've all heard it, because it's in every kind of across the world, it talks about eating the rainbow. And why the rainbow? Well, even in the Quran, it talks about pomegranates and figs and colorful things. And it's because it's high in nutrients and high in antioxidants and high in vitamins. That's what we want to, because we are literally, the nutrition that we get is what we put in. That's what we don't.
What would you suggest would be the best food to eat to prevent harm to our body? Like, as in, I know there's probably not a one word answer.
Yeah.
But
so it's going to be a balance.
30-day diet plan sort of thing.
It's going to be a balance. It's going to be foods that are, you should eat the rainbow. You should eat colorful foods. There should be at least 2 servings of some vegetable between the hours of iftar and suhoor. And that can be taken in many, many forms. It can be on, salads, green veggies that you munch alongside whatever else that you're eating, even if it is the biryani or the pilau or whatever it is, that's fine. But it's not going to be a giant plate, because you're going to feel that big old insulin rush. And it should be, our stomachs do shrink. There is that is real, because they can't take in, they're not constantly expanding, because it's a muscle and it can stretch and expand. So if you think about competitive eaters, look at how much they can eat in such a short period of time. They literally eat hundreds of like hot dogs or burgers within a span of minutes. The stomach is capable and can be trained to hold that amount of food. What are we doing? Every year, we train our stomachs to not take in those those large amounts, to say, moderation, be mindful of what you're putting in and how you're putting it in. Because this body will speak out for you on the day of judgment. It will say, has this person, I'm the soul that was invited, put into this body, and I am responsible for it ultimately. What am I going to, so what should somebody eat? You should eat fruits, you should eat vegetables. So eat, 1 to 2 servings of fruits. It can be in the midst form of making a smoothie, making like a fruit jar, depending upon what your, population, what your ethnicity is. Sometimes people actually start, and the healthy way to start is with a small bowl of like fruit jar, have your kajur, drink some water, and ideally put a little bit of like sea salt into it, because you need those electrolytes. You need to take that in. So you want to alkalinize the water a little bit. You want to have that. It's a small something, whether you break your fast and then you pray, or, in between duas. It's a great way to get a little bit. Your body says, she's fed me. And then we get to go on. We're not constantly thinking about, I'm so hungry, my stomach's not growling. And then you have your next, which some people start with, within Middle Eastern communities, it's people start with soup. That's a great way to start. It's something warm, usually has a lot of whether it's made with a chicken bone broth, has vegetables, it's a great way to start. And then you have complex carbs instead of simple carbs. You don't do the high sugar drinks. You drink water. If you want to blend juices or smoothies, great way to sneak in vegetables and fruits, by the way, throw in, especially on these days when it's hard, the nights are short.
Right.
Doing things like coconut water for hydration, because it has the electrolytes. Those are the things that you want to do. And you don't want to eat a large amount and then be sitting there like totally.
Yeah, I want to get back to you just
Yeah.
real quickly. Before that, I want to just ask Sheikh a question here regarding this eating and salat thing. Now, traditionally, if you go to certain communities, they will eat first and then pray, Maghrib and then Isha back to back. So they'll go on a 7 rakat marathon right after that. And in some other communities, when you walk in, like, no. You pray your 7 rakats first, and then you even put a date in your mouth. Now, of course, we're not fasting in December or January right now, at least not in Toronto or New York, where the fasts are small, where people could be a little bit more, relaxed, let's say. What are the Islamic recommendations on this? 2-point question. One, is it mustahab or recommended to eat and then pray, or vice versa? And if it's pray, is it all 7, Maghrib and Isha?
All right. So I was actually looking at some hadiths today about that. And before I go on, though, Sister Shaheen, she's talking about all these foods. It's getting me worked up and hungry, Especially the warm soup part. That really that was the nail in the coffin. Okay. So yeah. Anyway, thanks for that, Sister. But so going back to what you were asking. So yeah, I think I would say that the Imams have given us the nice balance in regards to what to do. Now, we have to understand that, well, I'll leave that for another time, what I wanted to say. But the hadiths are telling us, and of course, our fuqaha, based on those hadiths, will be telling us that that it is more beloved. The Imams would use this wording in the hadiths that we have, that it is more beloved to me, from what I remember, or it is afdal, it's better to pray. Unless, now this is where some of the conditions they put. The Imams, they'll say that unless you're too distracted by the thought of the food and the iftar, right? And those fried samosas with the GMO oils that they use. Okay, so like if if that's what you're thinking about too much, then okay, go ahead and like have your iftar first, But if you can't, so I remember one of the hadiths was talking about how if you can't perform the prayer with the proper adab and etiquettes, then yeah, it's better to break the fast first. But the default and the rule for istihbab, of course, these are etiquette, it's not wajib. And we're not going to impose this on our, especially children who are barely fasting, let alone, adding another 20 minutes to their iftar time. And in some centers, it might be 45 minutes, for the namaz or for the salat. But yeah, the default and the rule that we get is that, yeah, if you can pray first, then go ahead. Now, someone might say, okay, so it's going to be too hard for me to pray first. But at the same time, after iftar, as sister said, I was standing, but now I'm like this after iftar, right? And no, you can't pray like this. You have to wait for a couple of hours, let the food digest, and then pray again. But I don't want it to reach that point, someone might say. Yeah, so what do I do there? I mean, the answer I think is pretty obvious. You can raise your blood sugars a little with a couple of dates and some water, and then go pray. Kill that starvation mode that you're in or whatever, with a little bit of something like that, and then move on to your salat, and then have your meal afterwards, right? So that's one condition that you find in these hadiths, is that's what the imams are saying. But there's another one that's also important here, and I think we need to keep this in mind as well, especially if we're having iftar at home and with our families and whatnot. Lots of times the family will be waiting on me, or I'll be somewhere at someone's place, invited for iftar. This is after everyone's vaccinated and stuff, of course, probably. And so what do I do? Do I act all spiritual and stuff? Everyone's waiting at the table, and then I go do my salat first because I'm super spiritual man or something. No, you ain't no so super spiritual man. The hadiths are saying that if there are people waiting for you, and this is what I find so awesome about our religion. It's not black and white, If you have people waiting for you, it's better for you to go and do that. Do the iftar first with them, and then, so yeah, maybe sometimes that'll be the case. So it's not black and white. What I get from these sources is that is the rule, though. The rule is out of istihbab, once again, not wajib, is that if you can pray, then pray first, and then. And I looked into this matter of, should we pray just Maghrib and then do iftar and then do Isha later? What I found was that it's better to do both of the salats and then do your iftar. But once again, someone might want to have to do sometimes you'll have enough time to do one salat, right? The family is waiting on you, but by the time they get the sufra ready, by the time they get the table ready, you can squeeze in your first salat at least. I think that would be a good way of doing it as well. That you do your first salat, then you have iftar, and then you have your second salat a little bit later. That way you also went with the time of fadila maybe as well for Isha.
Okay. There's a question here, and then maybe you can respond for Shaykhna and then sister. As a what is a religious and science perspective about eating fast, which is like not chewing the food enough? So what are the Islamic recommendations on basically stuffing your mouth versus biting properly and chewing it before swallowing it?
Sheikh, do you want to address the religious?
I think it's better if you go ahead. I mean, look,
Yeah.
if it's harmful for us,
Yeah.
we don't even need to hear anything else.
Yeah. So I will tell you that the psychology of eating and the bio, like the neurobiology of it, is that the reason that we're supposed to chew more and eat slower, and this is something that I struggle with, so not a single one of us is perfect in this. It takes your mind 20 minutes for it to process from your gut to your brain that you are full. By the time your brain realizes you're full, you're 20 minutes over full. So that being said, the longer it takes you to chew, the slower that whole process will happen. If you're eating and just, because the fasts are long, and I get that. But that is also why stop, drink some water, because are you actually so hungry, or are you thirsty and your body doesn't separate the two? Because chances are you're more thirsty than you're hungry. Yes, I know that the rumbling stomach will probably say you are for sure hungry, but you're probably more thirsty than you are hungry. And if you take a few minutes and you do something like grab 2 khajurs, because I love khajurs and 1 majul date is not enough. I do too. And you drink some water. you'll probably feel that, okay, I'm good. But I'm not talking about just like drink a little bit of water. Drink water, drink like 1 to 2 glasses of water, because your body has gone without water for long. Your body can go without food for much longer than it can go without water. And it's more the dehydration. So especially in those longer summer months that we just came out of a couple of years ago, where this was more of, a lot on people's minds. Right now, the weather is not so bad. And we can acclimate, and you do have enough window of time in which to get your water in. But in doing that, it actually slows, your stomach fills up with the date, with the water, your brain says, okay, I've got something. And then you're more likely to chew slower. And if you sit there and you actually chew, because it is more difficult for your body to break down, it's more work for your stomach to do to break down the food if you were to not chew it with your teeth so much, because the stomach doesn't do absorption. It literally does mechanical breaking down. So if your teeth have done it, and the enzymes in your saliva have started to break it down, your body is going to actually be able to absorb the nutrition better and faster, so that you will be able to feel more sated than if you were to just mindfully eat.
Okay. Thank you, sister. Sheikh, would you like to add the religious perspective to that, or?
No, I think I can't recall. Something tells me we do have hadith in this regard. But all in all, I like to always say that Islam is not going to always, even if it tells us certain things, okay? Like, for example, if Islam has rules on, hey, try to sleep properly, sleep on times, get enough sleep, for example. Is this a religious matter? It is, you can say in a sense it is a religious matter because we have a hadith for it, right? But all in all, sometimes there are things that we will arrive at that are harmful for us or not harmful for us. Islam is going to say, look, I've given you the general rule here. If something is good for you, such as what she just mentioned about chewing properly, which I remember we do have some hadiths for, but I just can't recall them right now. Then that is something that, okay, I don't have to necessarily come and tell you to do it now. I've given you the general guidelines. And that's what, once again, makes our fiqh and our legal system so dynamic, is that you won't have to find a hadith for everything. Lots of times, if you have come to, if there's something out there that's kind of set in stone, that is proven, that is good for a person, that's not good for a person, then Islam will say, okay, I've given you the general guidelines. Do what you're supposed to do. Now, sister talked about the time it takes, right? The 20 minutes. I would have liked if you also, so you said it in passing, but like this whole saliva thing and the importance of it. I mean, because I'll just say this much, okay? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was raising Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, we all know, because Imam Ali speaks about this in Nahj al-Balagha. Yeah, he says that the Prophet would chew this food, yeah, and he would give it to me. What's going on here? Not even just that. I mean, there's something going on even with, he said, Kana yumissuni jasada. The Prophet would rub his body against mine. I mean, he would make that skin-to-skin contact. So today, science is talking about these things, right? When babies are born and stuff like that. But there are these effects that are out there. And so I've heard a lot about, I'm not trying to ask you a question, sister. It's just always fascinating to me once again. But like, can you just elaborate a little bit more on the saliva part? And when we chew more, like what's going on here exactly?
Yeah. So there's, like I mentioned, in the stomach, it's just the stomach acids to break down, and the muscular, like actual mechanical breaking down, which our chompers do, our teeth, right? But in our saliva, we actually have amylase, which breaks down the starches. And it breaks down the carbohydrates. And it's one of the enzymes that you do find from the pancreas that helps in the digestion. That's how carbohydrates are broken down. But you have within your saliva amounts of the salivary amylase to help break the carbohydrates and the starches. So I'm a bit of a science geek. So in even in high school science class, we had to literally sit there and like do an experiment where we like chewed on just like a rubber band just to stimulate saliva. And then we tested it. And there was a chemical reagent to see how much of this, you added a starch and then how much broke down. And it was amazing because you can actually stimulate, and everybody's amounts of amylase varies, but you actually get the breaking down of the starches. And this way the food is more ready to be absorbed once it starts to get in the gut, instead of sitting in the stomach for up to 3 hours.
Wow.
2 to 3 hours in order to mechanically break down. We're doing that by chewing. So think about it. Like, it doesn't feel comfortable when you're chewing like large amounts of food, and it feels like uncomfortable going down, because it's smooth muscle. It's just muscle as a means of, like, an elevator from the mouth to the stomach is the esophagus. But when the food is broken down and chewed, it kind of slides down easier. And the stomach doesn't have to do as much breaking up, because mechanically it's already broken down. It's already started to get the, breaking down of the nutrients so that it can be absorbed. And so it hits the small intestine and you're able to start absorbing, because all of the absorption, all of the nutrients that we get from our food happens in the small bowel, the small intestine, because that's where all of those villi, if you remember to high school biology, they do these little fingerlings, these basically just these loops of cells, just a few cell membranes thick. That's where all the absorption happens. None of the absorption happens in the stomach. None of the absorption happens in the colon. The colon's, the large intestine is just for reabsorption of water, because we have to kind of emulsify. Think about a blender. You put like vegetables and fruits in there and you just kind of grind the blades. It's not really going to do much. You need to add liquid to it, right? So you add the liquid and you blend, and things will become this like pulse. Like, think about smoothies and shakes. That's why they're more easy to absorb the nutrients of, because it's broken down.
Thank you, sister. There's a question for you, sister. It says, if someone wanted to do strength training, would it be better to do it after or before iftar? Some people say before to pack calories, after, while others say it's safer to do it once more hydrated and fed.
So there's actually from the biology of it. So ideally, if you're doing workouts, you want to kind of not do as vigorous cardio workouts, because your body is under the stress of not having eaten for periods of time. So, and also, you don't want to overstress your body, because the whole point of fasting is to give our bodies and our guts a break. So there's some healing that's happening already there. There's metabolic activity already happening. And then to stress it, to go into like heavy cardiovascular exercise where you can sweat a lot, you will actually get more fatigue. If you're an elite athlete, by all means, everything I'm saying is moot, because there are people who train for marathons. There's people in the NBA. There's well-known professional football players. So they're in a different league. They physically train their body to this. It's this peak performance. But for the general person, I actually really recommend strength training, weightlifting, because it's not as vigorous and you can actually get a great workout in. The ideal times, if you want to think about it, if you're able to just before iftar, end your workout just before iftar time, it's actually, or just a few minutes before, it's great, because then you can drink your water, you can rehydrate, you can have your kajur, you can hopefully, pray and shower, because there's, I'm sure there's going to be a bit of that, just hygienics. I know my son goes out to play soccer in the field across, and I was like, please go shower. But he will do that before nightfall. If not right before, because you're just feeling the fatigue and the stress of it, the point is not to overstress and overexert your body. So if not before, then ideally, if you're going to do a pray namaz, whether you've had your kajur and water before or you're having it after namaz, you have a little something, and then you can go and do your workout, and then you can come and eat. Or if you're going to have a meal, then you need to give yourself 1 to 2 hours in order to digest, so that your stomach is not working on digesting while you're working out, because you're going to cramp up. You're going to feel awful. You might throw up, really.
Sorry, let me just clarify to everybody else. Sorry, sister, that kajur is dates, tamar, khurma, depending what language you want to take that in. Sister is using the word kajur, but that's in
Apologies.
Well,
Sorry
no,
about
no,
that.
sorry,
Yeah.
that's fine. I thought I would just bring that in because
Yeah.
in case
Thank you.
people
Yeah.
aren't understand.
Dates and dates are very high, like high in fiber, great compact source of like, it's the perfect carbohydrate with the fiber balance. And it's got the electrolytes, it's got the potassium, it's got the magnesium, it's got the things to re-energize your muscles actually at a cellular level to help heal you and replenish your body from the fast. So it's not when I was saying, don't try and stay away from refined foods and sugars and, carbonated and fizzy drinks and things like that. It's because that's just like not, it's nutrient depleted.
Mhm.
Dates are very nutrient dense, just like figs. If people who don't like dates are like, oh, what else could I eat? Well, I was like, well, figs have a similar profile in terms of electrolytes and nutrients. So do apricots. So if you're into any of those, and then you've got the people who just break their fast with a little bit of salt. So I say go for the pink sea salt, Himalayan sea salt, if you can, because it's got some nutrients in there too. Electrolyte balance. If you look at elite athletes, like, if you look at like the rehydration solutions, the actual ones, not the sugar packed ones, they do have the salts in there because your body releases it, sweat, and it needs that balance back. So you don't want to you want to be careful if you're hyper, or you've got high blood pressure, but I'm talking about a pinch in water. I'm not talking about teaspoons. So
Thank you, sister. Sheikhna, would you like to add a couple of comments regarding the
Yeah,
discussion?
so like with the question was about exercising, right? So there's one thing I wanted to point out, going back to the spiritual aspect now, because I mean, it's called the whole, we've titled this whole thing the you're not starving, you're not just starving yourself. And so I want to talk about this just a little bit now that we spoke about exercise. I want to use an example here. The same way you're giving your body a break, your gut a break, and it's the wrong thing to do that when iftar time comes to chug down that big gulp, okay, with extra ice. Like, I don't even think that's a good idea. Even if it was water, I don't know if it's a good idea to even have ice water right in the beginning. But anyway, you'll have like that soda, and it defeats the whole purpose. Like, it's like, you're giving time for your body to rest so you can beat it up later, defeats the purpose, right? So I want us to understand one thing, that if a person looks at it from this angle, that okay, there are some physical benefits to the fasting, and we don't want to defeat the purpose there, the same thing will hold with the spiritual side as well. And I don't like to keep saying spiritual side because I'm not a very spiritual person myself. I don't want to sound like I am. I'm a normal person like everyone else, but just echoing what we've heard the greats say. Okay, that's how I'll put it. So I was just trying to be humble there, just if everyone didn't get what I was trying to do there. So don't be the person in the gym that is walking on the treadmill but has a straw in their mouth, okay, and is drinking soda at the same time. What am I trying to say here? Right? What I'm saying is that sometimes you're doing something, but you're not gaining what you're after. What does a person on a treadmill, running on a treadmill, right, doing that high intensity training, gaining, when right next to the gym or right inside the gym there's a little bar or a little, not bar, like a little place where you can go and like drink
Soda
something,
bar, yeah.
eat something. What do they call them?
A juice bar, I guess. Yeah.
Juice bar, that's what I meant. Yeah, a place where you can get snacks and stuff. All right, what gains is this person making, right? Nothing really. Why? Because the purpose was to lose, is to burn calories, but you're pumping that many calories just back in again, right? Don't be that person when it comes to the spiritual aspect either. And that's what those famous hadiths are saying, in my opinion at least, when they say that there are some people, all they get out of fasting is hunger and thirst. What's going on here? It's like that person who's in the gym, all they're getting out of their cardio is what? Is sweat. Is it weight loss? No, because they're pumping in right after it calories again, empty calories and simple carbs that they're taking in, right? So yes, this can be the same thing when it comes to the spiritual side. How? What am I talking about? I think we all know what I'm talking about here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has given us this opportunity, right, to gain taqwa. Taqwa, What does taqwa entail? Taqwa entails me being a person of piety, being a person who can refrain from the wajib and haram. And so we've all heard these hadiths that when you're fasting, your tongue should also be fasting, your heart should also be fasting, things like that. Or else, what are you getting out of the fast? You're getting out of the fast is hunger and thirst, or else nothing changed about me. Just like the person who goes through the hardship of fasting throughout the day, but iftar time comes, the calories that they would have spread out throughout the day, they just give it all at once to themselves. You get what I'm saying? And so this defeats the whole purpose. The Quran doesn't say kutiba alaykumus siyam, that fasting is prescribed on you. Why? So that you may go through some hardship, or so that you may go through some hunger and thirst, or this and that. No, it's giving us the core of the matter here, which is what? That you attain something that you can have and keep and maintain, inshallah, after the month of Ramadan. I mean, I'm going to go a step further even. I had never thought of this, but today, because of sister and her the points that she's making, it came to my mind that, whoa, wait a minute, maybe the month of Ramadan is not only an opportunity for us to fix our spirituality afterwards, like gain something that we can maintain after the month of Ramadan spiritually, but even physically, fix our diet such that we can maintain it the same way in moderation and healthy, in a healthy way where we're not taken advantage of by the food industry, maintain it after the month of Ramadan. But the point I'm trying to make here is this. If a person goes through the month of Ramadan in which Allah is showing us, hey, look at how strong you actually are. Don't say it's hard for me to stay away from this haram act or that haram act throughout the year. Don't tell me that. You have what it takes. Do you know why? Because you can stay away from something that's even halal on you when I make it wajib on you, and that's food and drink. We've all heard the line or seen the memes for it. Not even water, right? Because like dry fasting is a whole another level. I'm sorry, is a whole nother level versus wet fasting. What we're doing is dry fasting for like 14 hours on end, you know? So Allah is showing us you have what it takes whenever it's my satisfaction that's in the equation, right? So maintain this after. Use this opportunity to work on yourself. The shayateen are locked up for a reason. That if I get a chance, I'll talk about that later, if I get a chance. And a little explanation on that, because that's also misunderstood sometimes. If I'm giving you this opportunity, then make the most of it. If you don't, you're just getting hunger and thirst out of it, just like that dude in the gym is getting sweat out of his workout, nothing else really, no gains.
Thank you, Shaykhna. Sister, just a couple of questions for you, and then we're going to go back to the Shaykh and ask him to enlighten us about the shayateen. Well, because it's a three-part question. The third part is a point that I'd like to connect with, because I'd like to hear the Islamic opinion on that as well. Which is, the first one is for the youth. Let's say the guys who are, and brothers and sisters who are in their 20s or below that. That goes all the way up to when they turn baligh.
Mm-hmm.
What would you recommend as just a go-to suhoor or sehri, and iftar, just general plan for them,
Yeah.
and then one for adults, and the third one, which will connect with the Shaykh as well, is regarding pregnant women,
Okay.
or nursing mothers.
Yeah. So in general, at iftar and at suhoor, but at suhoor, we're kind of sleepy and groggy and really don't want to be preparing things in the morning. We're not going to be necessarily cooking. So a lot of times things that I have as go-to are like spinach or like vegetable and eggs, like mini muffin cups, or you can make it in a large batch, like a casserole bake of eggs and vegetables. Think of an omelet essentially, and bake that off. And then that's multiple servings. You can make them in mini muffin cups and they freeze really well. So just, quickly heat that up and you're ready to go. Another really great option. And I do also recommend 2 glasses of water if you can. I actually put some chia seeds in my water. It just gives it a little added fiber, really has some great healthy fats in there, and it has essential protein, plant-based protein. So, bang for the buck. The texture doesn't bother me. Some people get bothered with the texture. So in that case, you may want to not do that. Having smoothies, you may want to get smoothie packs ready. You can buy, in like the like I know Costco, for example, has like smoothie packs, and they've usually got some greens thrown in there. So it's not just fruits, but simple things like, putting some healthy fats, like either peanut butter or avocado in there for that healthy fullness. And then having some fruits, whatever fruits you like, frozen, or you can add some ice later. I usually say frozen because less volume, and then you can add like your liquid of choice, whether it's water, milk, almond milk, whatever. So things like banana, or if you like mangoes and peaches and things, frozen berries, and go for the frozen. It's there. You don't have to worry about the food going bad in the fridge, because I tend to overshop, and sometimes the foods go bad. So I really just go a lot into the frozen section, because the nutrients are there. Things are harvested at their peak ripeness, and then they're washed clean and flash frozen, so the nutrients are maintained. So it's an easy mom hack for me. I go to frozen veggies and frozen fruits a lot, because a lot of times I'll buy and I'll have the intention, and usually in my house, in all other times except Ramadan, like containers and bags of greens will get done. But in the month of Ramadan, it's like, when am I going to eat it? Like, I'm not eating salads for lunch, so even though I'll have some sort of a vegetable with lunch, when am I eating that volume of stuff? So one of the weekdays, it's always like a potluck of all the leftovers come out, because it's not about asraf, you have to use. So throwing in those frozen vegetables, greens. If you've got spinach that's going wilty, just pop it in the freezer and take some of that and put it in there. And then use any liquid of your choice, whether it's milk, almond milk, oat milk, whatever, or water. Honestly, coconut water is great at this time also, because the electrolytes, and it's going to not make it like super heavy. And you can have your healthy fat of choice, which is like avocado or some sort of a nut butter in there. And it's really healthy, really nutrient dense, and super easy. You can actually pre-make these packs into Ziploc bags, or you buy them pre-made and then you just pop them into your blender. As long as you don't mind the blender going off in the morning, it's fine. If you want to make it before you go to bed and pop it in a fridge in your jar, that's fine too. And things like, I actually advocate for overnight oats a lot, because they're super easy. It's a great thing. Overnight oats.
Are those different cuts?
So I'm going to tell you what it is.
Okay, sure.
So you can always like Google it. Feel free to ask me. I think I have a bunch of different overnight oats recipes. And actually, if you Google it, there's so many recipes there. But it's using oats, and using, you can add in, for additional protein, a little bit of like Greek yogurt, add in a liquid meat. It can be like milk or almond milk or whatnot. And you want to stir it, soak it. You can add in a little bit of healthy fats with either chia seeds, flax meal powder, or hemp hearts, just to add that, boost that nutrient content. And it just kind of absorbs. So what happens is, you don't actually cook the oats. The oats sit in that liquid and in that Greek yogurt, and they will actually absorb it. So you're not eating the hard oats that you would buy, right? And then you can season it with however you'd like. So whatever things, if you wanted to chop some dates, or put some bananas, or put some blueberries, or put some strawberries, you could add like cinnamon as a spice and whatnot. You can flavor it up, but you can have the base ready. And the base doesn't take long to put together, because in a big bowl, you can put your oats, you can put your Greek yogurt, you can put water, and then just put it into like mason jars or little bowls, keep it in the fridge. Do a week ahead at a time, and it's super easy. Another mom hack, because the life of a mom, and especially a working mom, is tough. And getting up and trying to satisfy everybody's cravings here and there, you got those quick options that you're ready to go to. Having some hard-boiled eggs ready, super easy. Doing some avocado toast. I mean, right now you got the avocado mash that comes like, literally, it's organic. It's just avocado, salt, and pepper. Things like those are easy go-to things. And honestly, I know you asked me to separate into youth and adult. So even when my kids were younger, now they're 18 and 15, mashallah. And my husband, we all kind of go for the same thing. So even if it's, you choose a healthy bread, something that's got a lot of fiber in it, nothing that's like white. That's my key, is avoid the white stuff. yes, I understand for my South Asian kind of like viewers, basmati rice is white. I get it. It actually has a lot of fiber in it. It is actually a nutritious white rice, but you're just not going to overdo it. But avoid those white breads. They're depleted of nutrition. But having things like that is super easy, I think. As for iftar time, a protein, it can be whatever protein you want in however form. Sometimes if you can do, like, the soups are great. I'm sorry, Sheikh, for talking about soups again, but a soup is a great base in order to get your vegetables and stuff in, and doing a really hearty soup really kind of fills you, warms you. It's really good for the gut because it has that, especially if it's like made with chicken bones or whatnot, it has that bone broth, which is where the nutrients of the marrow and everything are. So you can get that, and it's really gut healing more than anything else. It really helps repair the gut lining from the inflammation that we've been doing with all the other foods that we've eaten as processed. And over time, during the month of Ramadan, you will find, if you avoid these processed sugary things, that you won't feel achy, crampy, bloaty when you're eating, unless you're eating something really heavy and oily, because your gut's absorbing better. It's not inflamed, and nutrients cross that, cell barrier a lot more easily, because we have more bacteria cells. We're more bacteria than we are human cells. And the bacteria helps break down and get that nutrition that crosses over the lining. So when you're feeding your body to feed for nutrition, you're going to feed things that are whole, minimally processed. Trust me, I like a piece of cake every now and then. It's okay. But you're eating a lot of things from the earth, plant-based, like grown, right? You can eat definitely protein, but our bodies weren't made to, have so much protein, because it doesn't, our bacteria is not made that way. We have a balance of, we need to have the plant-based products and the protein, the animal-based products. There are some people that takes a small amount of animal-based proteins, but primarily take plant-based proteins, depending upon your body type, depending upon how your any underlying GI conditions, honestly. So check in with your doctor. But you want to have, there's not a single person that, doesn't do well with getting whole food from the earth, like, plant-based, like grown in, because it actually has the probiotics, the nutrients from the soil. And that's what feeds the bacteria within us, so that it can break things down, so that things can carry over and cross into our bodies and feed our human cells.
Sure.
So,
Sister,
yeah.
Sorry to cut you off.
No.
I wanted to actually ask the Sheikh this question, because now we're going to move on to the pregnant and the nursing mothers. And I want to ask this question because this question probably comes up every year, and it's an ongoing thing, whether it's first time mothers, second time, and so on, is that the general recommendation, at least from what I understand from Sayyid Sistani's perspective, is that if there is an alternate available for you to feed a child, if you're nursing, it's okay for you to, like, you should continue fasting. If I'm not mistaken, please correct me if I'm wrong. So in this day and age, our alternates are baby food formula, and many doctors and sister as well would probably chime in onto this, or probably agree on this, is that they would recommend obviously to stick to natural milk, the mother's milk. So in situations like that, how are mothers who are nursing supposed to fast?
All right, so this is a question that comes up a lot, and look, the marja will never come and say, okay, like, you have to substitute this for that, finished. He will always leave the discretion on the mukallaf and on the individual. But look, this is the general guideline that's there. If assuming, okay, this is very important here, because sometimes it's not worded like this. And once again, this is my take on the ruling, that assuming that there is no difference between the formula versus a mother's natural milk. Okay, if there's a substitute, or let's forget about that, even if there's access to other people who can nurse the child, for example, okay, whatever the substitute is going to be, if there's a substitute, right, and a person can fast as a result, then that substitute has to be taken. That's what the wording will say, okay? But this is assuming, okay, this is important to keep in mind, assuming that these two are equal. One might not be less harmful or more harmful and so on. So this is where the science, I would say, comes into the picture. If someone really feels that, no, I need to give my child the natural milk that Allah has put in me, right? Even if there's a chance, not that you have to be 100% convinced, there's a fear, right? There is a uqala'i fear in me. Uqala'i means something that's reasonable. It's a reasonable concern of mine that giving a formula instead of just my milk is going to be problematic for my child. Then you stick to that. And if you can't nurse your child as a result of fasting, you're not going to fast. And we have the rulings for it, how that has to be made up, and the fidyah that has to be paid as well for those days. It's not a kaffarah, it's not something huge. There is a fidyah involved here, right? But look, every person, every mother, every child, and the age of the child, the frequency of the feeding of the child, a lot of these things might play a role in this. And this is where our respected physicians, OBGYNs, whatever you want to call them, they come into the picture. And so I personally don't discount any of that. Today I was on the phone with somebody actually, and I said, look, don't just make it black and white. Oh, there's substitutes, so it's wajib for me to fast necessarily. I'm not going to tell you what to do, what not to. Discretion is on you. But these are the guidelines. If there is a substitute out there that does the exact job of a mother's milk, then okay, then you should fast. That's what they'll tell you. But the thing is, can we reach that point or not? That is where others will have to help us. In the end, if I can answer my answer to the question of, do I have a concern still in me or not? A reasonable concern in me. If that question remains, the answer to that remains, yes, there is a concern, then they'll tell you don't fast then. And you'll make that day up later, and a fidyah for that as well. This is for pregnant mothers and nursing mothers, both. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you, Shaykhna. Sister, would you like to add any points to this before we move back to the Shaykh and asking about the shayateen who are locked up?
Yeah, we will definitely get to that. So in, I just to reinforce what the Shaykh has said, it does vary as to how far along in your pregnancy are you. If you are in your first trimester or second trimester, it may be easier to fast, and it's not going to be detrimental to your body. In fact, some of the research has shown sometimes when you fast in your second trimester, your glucose control becomes better. Intermittent fasting, because there's people who do intermittent fasting during, so it's going to be upon you also, and check with your physicians. If you have a high risk pregnancy, please don't take any unnecessary risks. I mean, there's people who have, go into have preterm contractions and things like that. So then if you're fasting and you're going to get low amniotic fluid levels, it's not healthy for you. You're putting your health at risk as well as that of the baby. And I think in that instance, things are pretty clear when you think about it in that way. As for nursing, so it varies. I mean, I don't know if any of you are fathers, but those newborns, all they do is feed and sleep and poop, and so you're their only source. And if you are able to, there's some women who unfortunately cannot produce the milk or don't have sufficient milk, and then they supplement. Okay. Well, if you're supplementing, then maybe fasting is okay for you. But if you are the sole provider of your child's nutrition, especially if that infant is 6 months or younger, obviously check with your pediatrician. But if you're the sole source of nutrition, 6 months and younger, probably better to err on the side of of nursing and not fasting and maintaining that. In terms of they're actually there's a site that I wanted to share, and if maybe the moderator can put in there, there's a group of Muslim mothers who have they've done the research. They're scientist based, and they've kind of navigated a lot of and they have great blog articles for moms, Muslim moms, as resources in relation to Ramadan, health, nutrition, kind of raising children in an Islamic household. So I think it's a great website to share out. It's called My Modest Mama, MYMODEST MAMA.com. And it's got resources about breastfeeding and fasting, and they've asked, they've looked into the Sharia of it, and of course it all comes down to ask your marja, see how it is. But they have recommendations also, because if you're nursing and if your child is also on additional foods, then maybe you are able to fast because your child only feeds maybe twice a day, or is supplementing with additional nutrition that they're taking in. Of course, there's going to be the warning signs, like if you're fasting and you find that you're, and there's tips in there about, like, when you're nursing, how to kind of like massage the breast to help the milk flow down and things like that. So it's a great resource that's available to our community that I wanted to share out there. But first and foremost, your health and the baby's health. In the third trimester, especially in these long fasts, chances are you can have, you may be able to fast maybe every other day and maybe not have an effect. Maybe that's an option. There's things that you can do and check. But in the third trimester, especially kind of coming close, when you get dehydrated, you're at risk for preterm labor and contractions, and that's going to potentially be detrimental for your baby's health, because maybe the baby isn't matured enough to come into the world yet. So there's things to definitely look into from the medical standpoint. So those are my 2 cents.
Thank you, sister.
Sure.
Sheikh, I know we're jumping from like babies and mothers to like shayateen. I mean, it's a complete contrast here, but we often hear this, and of course we have riwayat about this as well, that the shayateen are locked up, but we still see sins happen, and people, even those who don't even fast, they're intentionally sinning. I'm not, of course, the ones who don't for medical reasons, but we're talking about those who intentionally break their fasts and other haram. Unfortunately, that still takes place. If you could shed some light on that, please.
All right. So what you're saying is something all of us have in mind, and we all have this question growing up. I thought the shayateen were locked up, Well, there's one shaitan that's still on the loose, but he's not referred to as shaitan. And he's our biggest enemy, according to a famous hadith by Imam Ali alayhi salam. And that is your nafs. In that hadith, Imam Ali, he says, "A'da aduwik nafsuka allati bayna jambayk." Yourself, your desires, that carnal soul of yours, that is your biggest enemy, the hadith is saying. Theologically speaking, all right, we can never have this expectation that God is going to do something that it is going to be impossible to sin now. That defeats the whole purpose of us being created. We're here, لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. You're here for that test. So think about it, 12 months of the year, 1 month Allah's going to be like, hey, there's no test, people, time to just, chillax and stuff. No, that's not how it works. The grind continues. As a matter of fact, that 1 month is supposed to get me ready for the rest of the 12 months. So that the grind is going to, for the rest of the 11 months, the grind is going to be even more probably in that training month of Ramadan, right? So we have to understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is helping us by making it a kind of more of a fair battle. Before it might have been an uphill battle to fight against my desires, my nafs. Why? Because you have a lot of other stuff also, pitching into this idea of me sinning, the whispers and all that. But if Allah's going to chain them up, and I'll explain what my take is on this as well, what chaining up means here. But if Allah's going to do that much, all right, so now it's just me and nafs. Let me see what you got. You know what I'm saying? What are you all about, nafs? All right. Now it's a level, balanced fight. So what does it mean that the shayateen are chained up? And there might be different explanations to this, but what I find that makes the most sense to me, very humbly, I say this, is that when we are hungry, when we're thirsty, right? When we're lacking energy, right? How much inclination do we have to certain sins that that we have on a full stomach, and not having to worry about anything else, and having all the energy in the world? There's a big difference, right? I barely want to even talk right now. For example, I'm just saying that that's not the case. Sheikhs, we like to talk, but I'm just saying, like, when you don't have that energy anymore, when you're beat up, kind of, because of the fast, you're not inclined towards sin that much anymore. You have bigger things to worry about than certain sins, right? And so I'm just once again echoing what I've heard big scholars say, that this is what is meant when the hadith says that the shayateen are locked up. Okay, that the means and the tools and those things that would push us in the direction of sin are much less. Not that Allah is now doing the work for us, not that there's a cheat code that we've activated in the month of Ramadan that is going to just make the test zero now. No, that defeats the purpose of creation. God's never going to do that. That is, in a way, that is wronging us as his creation. We're here for the purpose of the tests. And so he is just making it more of a level battleground and playground for us to be able to fight that enemy of ours that is the real enemy, according to Imam Ali alayhi salam. It's just like not the mRNA vaccines, but the other ones, the traditional ones, where you have a weakened version of the infection, right? I hate to talk about this kind of stuff when there's like somebody here that knows a ton more than me, but I just thought I'd try to sound cool, and relevant. But no, like, so they say, if I'm not mistaken, the mRNA vaccine it's not a weakened version of the sickness, right? It's not. Okay, so that is just the code being injected into us, right? And the RNA being injected. But like the other vaccines, the traditional ones, it's a weakened version. Why? So that the body has the chance to figure things out. Oh, this is what you look like. All right, let's fight now. Let's see what's up. That kind of thing. Ramadan, the month of Ramadan, something similar, where Allah says, all right, I'm going to try to get as many distractions and other problems that you're going to have to deal with in this spiritual fight, lessen that so that you can focus on the main illness here, the main threat, which is a'da aduwik nafsuka allati bayna janbayk. So that's my take on it, because there's a lot of people that ask this question, like, I thought the shayateen were locked up, so why am I still sinning? Well, because the big shaitan is right here.
Thank you, Sheikhna. From our viewers, if there's any questions, we'll give you guys about maybe another minute to or two while allow the panelists to make their final concluding comments. Because I realize that we're at about 7:49 right now, and there's certain cities in the east, I think, that their fasts would probably be opening soon. I know us here on the Canadian side, we still have about a half an hour left, but parts of New York might be a bit sooner than that. So Sister Shaheen, if you have any concluding comments, any suggestions for everybody else, that'll allow other people an opportunity to think of their questions as well.
So kind of pulling along what Sheikh had just said, this month is an opportunity for us to really reflect and really think more, be more in tune with what we're putting in. So yes, it's not just about starving yourself. Think about that. What are we doing? What is the point of the nutrition, and what are we seeking to achieve? So, maybe you've been struggling with your health. Maybe you've been, having issues with digestion and things like that. Maybe you're battling as to what your other medical conditions are. This is a great opportunity to kind of launch into a healthier lifestyle, kind of seeing those little steps. It's the baby steps. It's, no one's asking you to continue with this intermittent fasting beyond the month of Ramadan. If you choose to, by all means, go ahead and see how you can kind of fine tune it and see how elegant it is in its simplicity. But it's tough, because we are fighting ourselves. We're surrounded by all these temptations within us. And it really does kind of break down to realizing your intention. what is your intention with what you're doing? So in terms of, what are the devils that we fight against? As I mentioned earlier, one of my biggest struggles was an emotional block, an emotional eating, and struggling with an eating disorder, and actually tuning in to how my body needs to be fueled and what it takes. Does that mean I don't ever slip? No, I am not perfect in any way. But it means that I am more intentional about how I choose to fuel myself. My goals in terms of health, it's not about a weight, it's not about a number on the scale, it's about feeling comfortable. It's about saying that, yes, ultimately my body has a say over what I do in the afterlife. How did I treat it? Did I take care of this amazing gift given to me by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And I hope that despite all the things that I have done to put stress on my body, I ultimately hope that, these little changes, these little things that have taken me, months to years to implement. And honestly, this has been an ongoing kind of evolution over the past 7+ years. I didn't get here overnight. Just as, Sheikh didn't get to his level of knowledge and understanding overnight. It is the practical implementation of the little things, and it really is going to be the baby steps. So if you take something away, just realize that it is us fueling this amazing vessel that was given to us by God. And that's how I kind of take it, and I say, okay, this is a form of ibadah as well for me.
Thank you, sister. Sheikhna, any final remarks?
No, thank you, sister. That was wonderful. Yeah, same. I just echoing what she said, and how that there's a purpose in all of this, more than we even understand. Now we're seeing the physical benefits of it more and more and more. It's trending now. Okay, it's a thing, really. Intermittent fasting is a thing, and so it's beautiful how Allah, He doesn't even bolden this side of things as much as He does the spiritual side. If this is the effect of the physical side of things, that after 1400 years, all of a sudden it's cool to fast, They call it different things: intermittent fasting, therapeutic fasting, they call it, right? And how the body has to tap into the fat stores because you're low on glycogen. Who are we kidding? It has to tap into that, ketones are made because of that, and the body like thrives on that too. Things like that, you're like, wow. And then you're like, okay, that's just the physical side, but then the Quran points out the spiritual, what's going on the spiritual side. So this fasting, in the end, it seems to be, and seems safe to say, that it is the means to an end. It is not the end itself. It is a means to something huge, something great, and that is to fix our akhirah altogether by taking care of ourselves for here and for the other side, right? And so that hadith, that famous hadith, once again, which says that one of the purposes of the fast is to remind us of the hunger and the thirst of akhirah, or the thirst of akhirah, something like that. Either hunger and thirst or thirst of akhirah really shakes a person that, wow, if I'm doing the fast now, there is something in it for me that will fix the akhirah, and the hunger and thirst that I'm supposed to experience over there gets me ready for it. And it is a junnatun minan nar, it is a shield from the hellfire and all of that. And so all of these things start to make more and more sense. It just gains meaning. Okay, once we bring the afterlife into the picture, this is something Allah is going to take as an investment. As the hadith says, that Allah says that the sawm is for me, fasting is for me, and I am the one who's going to reward for it. So He's taking it, investing it, so that there at least we don't go through the hunger and thirst, that a little bit of it we are tasting here, inshallah. Thank you very much.
We'll conclude. There are no questions here. If I can request you to please do a short dua for us, for all of us, inshallah, and we'll inshallah conclude with that.
Inshallah. Dua faraj is the best that comes to mind, of course.
يعني
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
الرحمن الرحيم.
اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصل يا ربي على محمد وآله الطاهرين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Thank you again, sister. Thank you again, Shaykh Amin.
Thank you.
Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.